Welcome to Aurelia's virtual book club. We are discussing The Fairy Wren by Ashely Capes. And Ashely was gonna come, except I changed the date and time at him at the last minute, and so he can't make it anymore. It's all my fault. I'm sorry. So you have to suffer through hearing me talk all by myself. Hopefully it's not too bad. So I have had a very hectic month. Lots and lots of things happening. There was the Brain to Book Cyber Convention a week after I got back from a conference, and then there was putting all of the ideas from both of those events into place. So reading The Fairy Wren was a really, really great way for me to find that space of calm and centeredness. It was a perfect book to read when you're feeling frazzled. It's just, Paul is so zen. And so that I really liked that, because it let me let go of all of the little things that are buzzing around my head, and just focus on the story. And I think that's true of most novels, but some novels are more I don't know, they're more emotionally volatile. And I think The Fairy Wren was very emotional, but it was emotional in a steady build, as opposed to being up and down and up and down and up and down. I did not expect John to be such a big character when we were first introduced to him at the party. He struck me as the sort of person that you just be, hi, okay, fine, whatever, go away, and never talk to you again. But I thought it was interesting how, despite being such a different personality from Paul, the two of them were so close. And it was interesting to me that Paul, by the end, Paul was dropping everything to go help John, and vice versa. So I think it sort of reflected back to how close they had been as kids. I think they regained some of that closeness. And I liked all the scenes with Alessandra. So my brother is 12. So I relate a lot to taking the kid around and making sure that they stay out of trouble, but don't get bored and don't run away, and that they know everything. Yeah. So yeah. And I like the Fairy Wren. The bird. Obviously. Or maybe not so obviously, I don't know. I like the symbolism of the bird, and I like how intelligent the bird is, and how the bird never speaks directly itself. It always has some other way of communicating, and I liked that. I think sometimes we forget to acknowledge the importance of the nonverbal communication. Which again goes back to taking everything in stride and having the calmness to be flexible in stressful situations. If you let yourself feel stressed and frazzled, then it's harder to actually get anything done. It's harder to constructively solve the problem. And in a way, I think that Paul's journey sort of was to find that out. I think he started out in a place where every little thing was triggering him to want to explode. And by the end, he was able to do what he needed to do without it making him want to explode. Like when he gets ready to go help John dispose of Grady's body, he doesn't hesitate about what to bring. He just packs his car and goes. Whereas closer to the beginning, he's hesitating about all sorts of things. He's hesitating about whether or not he's going to actually show up to his birthday party. He's hesitating about what he wants to do with his shop. And I liked that there was ambiguity at the end of what exactly happens with his shop, what exactly happens with Alessandra. Like you could imagine that maybe he adopts Alessandra, and she's his connection to Sasha when, if Rachel and Sasha move away. I thought it was interesting that he had to figure out how to play the trumpet in order to bring Sasha back to life. I'm sure there's symbolism in that, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it's referencing. I need to reread all of my classics. I guess calling her back, maybe. But I think it's interesting how it took both of them, both Paul and Alessandra, working together to make that happen. And I liked how the colors worked to connect the Wren with Sasha. I like how Ashely led up to that in the description of the bird fading. Yeah. What else? There's so many things. There's always so many things. This is why I like having the author on, because then they can ask me questions to draw the things out. Let's see. Accidentally getting himself in police trouble and somehow magically being able to get out of it. It's almost like a series of unfortunate events, only less absurd and more serious, I guess. Yeah, that's just, you know, sometimes life deals you a bad hand, and I like that it was a little bit extreme for an average person, but it was all stuff that could happen. And I liked that the detective didn't really want to take Paul in all of the times he had to, but he had to. And I liked the connection Paul had with his deceased father, and how that sort of was one of his guiding threads throughout the whole thing. It wasn't overt at all, not really. But I liked that when he was trying to figure something out, or he didn't know what to do, or he wasn't sure about something, he would, he would go to the piano that was clearly something that he inherited from his dad and that had value to him and to his father, and he would play a little bit even though he's not a musician. And that gave him that connection, and then he could sort of wonder and figure things out. What would my dad have told me? Yeah. So I really liked also, oh my goodness, names. Um, um, Eddie Greenhorn and his songs. I really liked Eddie. I liked how Ashely managed to give him a voice that sounds like someone who's like that, while making it clear that he is very intelligent and very talented at the same time. I think when you have that kind of character in a book, it gives you the opportunity to become more open-minded about that form of diversity without necessarily, maybe someone lives somewhere where everyone is all the same and it's a tiny little town, and nobody has any sort of intellectual difference at all. So it gives you exposure to things, to cultures, to situations that you wouldn't otherwise be able to experience. And I definitely recognized some of the people that I've met in that character, and I think it was very well done. And I liked how much time they spent outside. I like how much time Paul spends, in his garden. Like he'll go outside to make a phone call. He won't just necessarily stay sitting in the house. I think that's a good reminder to all of us who spend all of our time cooped up inside that it is healthy and good for us to go outside. Actually, I came across an NIH article. Research study was done about the influence of greenery on the mortality rate of women. And apparently, I guess they only studied women, so this is probably true of men as well. But living in a place with greenery around reduces your mortality rate by 12%. So being outside is important. So I liked that he didn't always stay inside. I liked that he would park somewhere and then he would walk on purpose, sometimes a really long distance. I liked how much he cared about books and how he didn't want to close the store, but that he wasn't really willing to try the online version of the store until after he was forced to close the store. I think that's really interesting. I think there are a lot of indie stores, and I get frustrated as a reader when I go into an indie store because most of the books that I gravitate towards are fantasy and science fiction and romance. And I tend to like the fantasy romances more. That's one of the reasons why we read so many different types of books on this book show, because I want to expose myself to as many different types of books as possible, and expose you to that too, because that's the best way to learn new things and to grow. But when I go into a bookstore, I'm often looking for a particular type of book, and I usually know what I want to read, at least on an emotional level. And I'll get frustrated when the shelves only have books I've already read, and the bookstore managers only know about the bestsellers. And I think there's a lot of value to be had in having an independent bookstore that specializes in something. And maybe it's not a particular genre, but maybe it's a particular type of emotional experience, right? You can have a certain kind of emotional experience with a lot of different types of books. Let me see if I can come up with an example. So let's say, something like, well, okay, I'm going to use Ashely Capes as an example, since we're talking about the Fairy Wren. So I have read 3 of Ashely's books so far. 3.5, I think. I think I'm in the middle of one of them. One of the sequels to The City of Masks. And I like reading all of Ashely's stuff. So the Fairy Wren, and then there's The Whisper of Leaves, which is sort of like a ghost story. And then there's City of Masks, which is like an epic fantasy. And I like reading all of those different books because I get the same kind of an emotional journey out of it. And that's what makes Ashely Capes books awesome. And like nobody else but Ashely could write books that are Ashely books, right? But they're not necessarily all the same genre. So I think there's value to be had in combining the online and the physical bookstores. And I think it's interesting that never really occurred to Paul as something to do. It was almost like at the beginning he was very closed-minded and was very set in his ways. And he had to be forced by circumstances to becoming more open and responsive to the people around him and to how to interact with them better. I think by the end, he has a better relationship with everybody that matters to him than he did at the beginning. He's back on speaking terms with Rachel. He and Kelly have a blossoming relationship. He wants to meet Mickey. He has a strong connection to Alessandra. He has a better connection to Mrs. Greenhorn. And Eddie and John and Henry, his uncle, and I think that's really what the book is about. It's a story about how do you keep yourself from getting so stuck in your ways that everybody hates you. Because that's, Rachel admits that at the end. She's like, you were so negative and so focused on just this one thing that it drove me away, and I didn't want to raise a child with you. So, lesson, be open. But you already know that because you're here exploring new books with me. Yeah. So, I hope you enjoyed the Fairy Wren. I'm sad that I messed things up, so Ashely couldn't be here too. um, and I'm sure there are a ton of things that I could say that I'm like forgetting to say. I loved all the little references to songs, to artists, to musicians, to books. And again, this is another Ashely thing. Because Ashely is Australian, Ashely knows all the Australian dialect things, and that's really fun for me to read because I'm not Australian. And it was a lot of fun to read the Fairy Wren because it was almost like I was on vacation in Australia for a week. You know, just the heat and the way that the weather is and the way that the plants are. It really, it makes you feel like you're there. It's a great escape, but it's also a great, you know, contemplative book at the same time. Yay, Ashely. So I hope you got a lot out of it, and we're reading a romance next. I guess you will have to watch the social media to find out when that's going to be because I haven't finished scheduling it because everything's been hectic. But it's, what's it called? It's called, I think it's called Raining Down Rules. It's definitely by BK Rivers. I think it's called Raining Down Rules. Let me check. All right. I can't find the email, but it's definitely by BK Rivers, and I'm pretty sure it's called Raining Down Rules. And it is a romance, contemporary romance. So I'm excited to read that. We haven't read a pure contemporary romance yet. We've read some romances, but none that were properly contemporary. So I look forward to seeing you next time, and I hope you got a lot out of the Fairy Wren, and I'll make sure to post the links and everything in the show notes. Bye.